Welcome to the show. It's everything you need to know about product marketing interviews. My name is Kenton. I am the founder of Rocketblocks, which is an online platform that helps candidates prepare for interviews. And today we have Rekha Srivatsan joining us. She's a senior director of small and medium-sized business product marketing at Salesforce. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, and I'm excited to talk about all things related to interviews with you.
Awesome. Nice to be here. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Okay. Well, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
And we're going to go with the first question, which is, tell me about one of your favorite product marketing interview questions to ask is, and why do you think that's such a helpful question to ask as you're going through the interview process?
Perfect. So I love having interviews more as a conversation, just to get to know the person a little bit better. The functional aspect of product marketing, it's not rocket science. You can learn over time. You have skills to, or resources to build on that. But the person and who they are and how they map or fit with the team is going to be extremely important. So I usually err on the side of like having fun questions during interviews. So one of my go-to questions has always been, what's your favorite story as a child? Like, what would you, if you were to like read a book for your nephew, niece, or your kid, or whoever it is, what would that book be? And the reason why I ask that is because product marketing at its core is all about storytelling. So there must be a story that you gravitate towards or that you find yourself fascinated by, and there must be a reasoning to it. And that can tell a lot about the person and the emphasis they have with storytelling. So that's one of my go-to questions.
Interesting.
Then the next question I ask is also, if you were to have one superpower, what would that be? And having a broad-ended question like that, sky is the limit. And you usually get a lot of fun questions, and people don't really expect this question, so that throws them off a little bit. So they are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And they usually gravitate towards like a Harry Potter, superpower, because that's the magical book or movie that they've watched. So that also tells you a lot about what's top of mind for them and how they frame or approach solutions. So those two are my go-to questions. And I usually try to wrap up my interview by asking one question about like, hey, we've talked for 30 minutes now. I've seen your resume. I have feedback from the other team. What is the one thing you can tell me about yourself that I don't know, that's not in any of this? And the approach is always interesting because I've had people who tell me, I'm a go-getter, I get stuff done. If you give me something, I'll do it. And they use this as their pitch time where they can use a quick sentence elevator pitch about themselves. Or they can take the personal route of, I live in San Francisco, I have a puppy, or I have 2 kids, or they tend to do that. But either way, it tells you a little bit about who they are as a person and what's important to them that I would never know otherwise from a resume or a 30-minute interview. Yep. And again, a glimpse into who they are and how they would fit into my team is critical for me.
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. I love the first question you mentioned about like, tell me a favorite story from growing up. And you sort of hinted at that it's an interesting question for you because it gives you a window into how they can tell their own stories, and storytelling is so critical to product marketing. I'm in complete agreement there. I'm curious if you have any thought or things you could share about when someone starts telling a story. What are the things you're looking for to help differentiate between this person is good at telling stories versus like maybe the skill isn't as strong as I would like to see?
Right. I think it always is that hook for me. Someone who starts off the story with like, oh, there is something that's about to happen, and they put me at the edge of the seat. I love when people start off that way because you're more inclined to like, oh my God, finish the story. What is that you're trying to do? I want to know the ending. So the hook at the beginning is extremely important. The second thing that I really enjoy, if someone sets the scene for me a little bit, like it's a rainy Sunday afternoon and you're on your couch, and I can immediately start visualizing in my head what that looks like, and I'm hooked. I'm engrossed in your story and I want to hear. If you think about how you apply the storytelling aspect from that to product marketing, it's very similar. Because in product marketing world, you're sort of telling the story of the product and how that maps to your prospects and your customers, right? So you still have to have the hook. It's very easy for me to say Salesforce helps you grow your business, but what's the catch in that? Like, we know that. But if I take it back one step and tell them, hey, did you know that 40% of small businesses struggle with technology adoption? You're like, oh yeah, that's one of me, like that's me. So tell me what I can do to solve for that. So there is that immediate connection or a hook that you can have that catches the attention of the audience, that you have them already. Now sell it. So
I feel like some of the things, not exactly, but what you were sort of talking about there reminds me of I've never actually said it out loud, but I think it's the ADA loop action. And I think hearing you mention that, I think is cool and interesting to hear, because I think oftentimes I hear folks talk about storytelling and I think they think it's a solely like creative outlet, like that
right.
you're just a creative storyteller or you're not. But there's actually, I think, a lot of structure that goes into telling a story well. And so you said you start by grabbing my attention, then give me some context. And so that makes sense to me as well.
And I think that's the aspect of product marketing, where you sort of bring in, touch on the challenges you have that's unique to you as for us as small business, and then sort of give you an example of what Salesforce can do for you, but add on to it about how a customer similar to you is already doing that, and then end it with like, here is how you can get started. It's a simple framework, but that solves a lot of the questions about how you want to market your product to your audience.
Yeah.
So I love this workshop that Pixar has about storytelling.
Yeah.
You might wonder, Pixar they are genius. They have the really good films that my kids and I watch all the time, but the hook is the same hook across every movie, but whether it's Finding Nemo or Dory or Up, it's the same hook, but it works and you're hooked. So I love their framework.
Yeah. I'm smiling as you mentioned that, because we're working on a behavioral interview module for our company,
cool.
and we actually have a slide in there about Pixar.
Oh, nice. Okay.
They're like the canonical masters of storytelling, and they've mastered it so well. Cool. Okay, well, great start. I like those answers to the first question. Tell me a little bit about, as you interview candidates, and I'm sure given your position, growing teams at Salesforce, you've done probably hundreds of interviews, I would guess. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see in product marketing interviews?
Yeah, first thing, we have to acknowledge that product marketing at every company is extremely different. So you have to understand that there's a wide spectrum of skills that come to what product marketing is. Even at Salesforce, right? You can be a content marketer, but call yourself a product marketer, or you can be a social marketer, call yourself a product marketer, or classic product marketing, or sales enablement. Like there's just a spectrum. So I have healthy appreciation for people who ask, what does product marketing mean at your company? Because that should help them, or they should have that question, because they should not assume that all product marketing functions are the same across different companies. So if someone does not ask me that question, I'm wondering, why didn't you ask me that? Like, what is that? Or what do you think product marketing is? It just makes me wonder if they understand what they're getting into. So I would highly encourage people to ask that question. What does product marketing mean at your company? The second thing that I always find is someone who has had more of a corporate branding experience, or someone who's done solely sales enablement, or they think of product marketing as someone who can do cheat sheets for sales. It annoys me, sorry, but it's a sore point for me. I'm like, well, product marketing is not just that. There's so many aspects that you would have to do to be able to get there. So I don't expect everyone to know what product marketing at a company is, but don't assume it's always just sales enablement. It's not. It's actually much more than that. So research the company, get a better understanding of what product marketing does, and ask that question to the hiring manager is a good flag for them to know you understand product marketing at large. Yeah,
and that makes sense. Good points. The follow-up question I have is, they saying like, oh, like product marketing is about making cheat sheets or Q&A sheets for the sales. Right. Let me ask you this, is the reason you see that as such a negative signal is because it's like understanding the role is just like one tactical task versus the sort of scope and mindset that a product marketer should bring to an organization or a product team? Right. It's 100% that. And it's also that if you were in a prior role, like a sales role, and you had done putting together a cheat sheet, does not make you a product marketer. It's one aspect. It's one tactic. So you need to, if you tell me, hey, I did that in my current role and I think I could be good at product marketing, great. Let's talk more about what that entails, and so that you get into it eyes wide open. But if you tell me, hey, I used to do this, which makes me already a product marketer, so I want this job, is not right. So it's just a nuance, and able to understand how you can tweak what you have for different audiences across the board, internal and external, is a broad function with product marketing. And with that comes a lot of knowledge about the product too, right? Like you have to be an expert in what you do. You are the marketing expert on the product to be able to talk about it. So definitely never assume that one size fits all across product marketing. Got it. Cool. Makes sense. Sounds good. So definitely stay away from assumptions about
Yes,
what product marketing is at the company, that it might involve only a specific task or something like that. Great.
right.
Cool. How about tell me a little bit, if you think about it, and you've already sort of hinted at this in the answer to your first question, but when you think about a set of product marketing interviews that yourself and your team are running for a particular candidate, what are the key skills you're trying to suss out? As the storytelling, I think, is one. You highlighted that right off the bat, but what are the other skills that you want to see in a candidate?
Coachability, flexibility. Like, I think the one thing that pandemic has taught us is to evolve our function to be not just doing one thing, but a variety of skills. So even at a big company like Salesforce, you find yourself doing not just your job description, but sort of doing the adjacent and the different functions that come with marketing. So how coachable you are and how flexible you are with changes. As with most companies, you go through changes with either the market segment fit or new product launches or org changes, whatever it is. How do you roll with the punches? Are you someone who's scared of changes or someone who does not really thrive under changes? Like, what do you do? So it's not necessarily product marketing specific, but it's something that you need to keep in mind. So how much can I coach this person to success? The other thing that I would love people or candidates that come to product marketing is that ability to be creative and experiment. It's important because you don't want to join a company and follow the playbook at large. Salesforce as a company, we've done so many cool things, and we wouldn't have done that if we were like very strict with our playbooks and doing just that day in, day out. So someone who's done some things out of the box, someone who's like not afraid to test new things and try new things and experiment with new things would go a long way.
Awesome. Okay. And when you think about an interview process, like let's take coachability, for example, you want to make sure you're bringing in candidates that are receptive to feedback, can react and iterate on their approach or a skill set or whatever it is. How do you try and suss it out in an actual interview? Because I imagine you're not saying, hey, do you think you're coachable? Are you a coachable person? Like, what is a way that you might tease out and sort of evaluate whether the candidate can roll with the punches in a way that you would look?
That's an interesting question too. So one of the things that I ask in my interview with them is, tell me the last time you thought a product was going to be successful, but it was not. What was the project where you had a miss? And usually it'll be like, well, I had this, I did this, I thought it would take off in the Germany market, but it did not. It was a huge dud there. And then the next question that I would ask them is, well, if that didn't happen, how did you come back from that experience? So let's say that didn't pick up. What did you do after that? The first week after that project flopped, let's just put it that way.
Yep.
What did you do? Did you take a break? Did you talk to your manager about it? Walk me through your mental makeup during the week following that flop project. What did you do? And how did you come back? Or how did you even revive that? Most successful coachable people usually look for learnings with a flopped project. So if a project did not take off, the one thing that they would do is like a retro. Let's break it down to see which aspect of that project did not take off, what was not successful. Let me understand that. So someone who does that in a more regular basis is more set up for success in a way, because they're already thinking about what they can do better the next time they have a project. So to me, that signals someone who's coachable and someone who's willing to look into their learnings to grow faster.
Awesome. Got it. Okay. So it's sort of like one approach is ask them about a situation where there was a failure or a flop or whatever the word you want to use, and see if they've actually internalized lessons from it and how to sort of pivot their approach or whatnot. And that's sort of a good signal.
And then also in my, I have a weekly team meeting with my team, and every time I ask them, tell me one learning that you have from last week. It can be a personal learning, it can be a professional learning, but I do want to normalize that it's okay to fail, in the broader sense. It's okay if one project does not pick up, that's a-okay, but we need to have that mindset to try new things. Just because one didn't pick up does not mean anything that you do is not going to pick up. It's just one aspect of it. So let's try to learn from that and move forward versus using that as your roadblock to not innovate.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. That's a good team exercise to do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, surprisingly, there are a lot of good learnings. Like I did an activity with my kids last week, and apparently I can draw a llama freehand. Like I did not know that about me. Apparently that's a thing now. So there's so many good learnings that you learn on a day-to-day basis, and you should never stop that if you want to be successful. So irrespective of your job.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good thing in job and in life in general, actually.
Right.
my grandmother used to take care of me a lot when I was growing up, when my parents were both working. And when I would stay with her, one of the things she would do is at the end of every night, I'd tell her one happy story and one sad story from the
Oh,
day.
I love that.
And it was sort of like this like reflection. And I actually think it's like a very simple set of questions, but it's a
Yeah.
very nice way to sort of think about an experience or a period of week and like, what did you learn? What went well? What didn't go well? And, how can you improve?
Right. Exactly.
Especially,
And your learning is actually a learning for another person when you're sharing that too. So you might always have a same project or similar project, and what worked for you could work for another person. So we win as a team. So that's an important culture that we have.
yeah, definitely. Cool. Awesome. So let's jump to the next question. Tell me a little bit, and some of it may just sort of echo of things you've already said, but to the extent you have advice for people that are trying to break into product marketing for the first time. So they're
Yeah.
new to the profession, maybe they're switching from, I know you said you hired an account exec recently, and I think someone that came from maybe engineering into your
Yes.
product marketing.
Solution engineering. Yes.
Yeah, like tell me about like, what are your tips for people that are trying to transition in?
I enjoy people coming from different backgrounds, like diverse backgrounds. Like I don't think if you're a marketer, you should always be a marketer, or if you're in sales, you should always be in sales. So I welcome the diverse backgrounds. If someone who's trying to break into marketing, I would ask them to try to shadow a role that is an ideal role for them. So for instance, an account exec could shadow someone in PMM. So by shadow, I mean reach out to them, understand the day in the life of, like, what does that role actually mean? Most often, it's like an expectation versus reality mismatch. What you think marketing does is we're probably having fun, we're throwing events together, we have swag, and that's marketing in a broad sense. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it to be successful. So shadow them, understand their perspective, understand their goals, and how, most importantly, they track success. So your function as an AE, the way you track success and your goals is very different from a product marketer. So what does that transition look like? And is that something you're willing to learn and adjust and grow? So it's important for you to understand that completely. The other thing that I also tell them is explore different facets of marketing. What do you think could be it could be called different compared to what it is in this role? So for instance, this particular AE that I was talking to last week told me, hey, I really, really like product marketing. And I said, oh, great. I'm glad, I'm a product marketer, so I'm glad I'm converting another person. Awesome. But what aspect of product marketing do you like? And she said, well, I really like how we create a logo, we create a tagline to it, we have ads on it, and it's pretty cool. Product marketing seems fun. And I was like, well, it's marketing. That's not product marketing. We partner with them, but that actually comes from our campaigns team or the demand gen team. And she was like, I had no idea we had a team that did that. Like, what is that team? So most often than not, from the outside world, what you think is called marketing may not be the actual function of that. So familiarize yourself with different aspects of marketing before you say you like one aspect of it. Most often than not, you probably have a combination of them. That's okay. But at least identify the roles and responsibilities that go with that particular role and spend some time getting to know the role. And if all goes well and you decide to interview, pick the role that makes sense to you and go for it. Try. The more interviews you have for a role that's outside of your comfort zone, the more you're going to learn in that process. So.
Yeah. Awesome. And so I think some of that you sort of framed from the perspective of, say you're in a company like Salesforce, you're an AE, you're interested in marketing, go the shadowing route, speak to people in that role, learn about the roles. I completely agree. That makes a ton of sense. And if you have that access, that's incredible. If you're on the outside, like maybe you don't work at a tech firm, a tech company, you don't work somewhere where you can ping a product marketer and ask him or her some questions. Are there good places, like, are there other avenues to sort of get that learning, or do you have tips for that?
I mean, watching this interview would be a great learning. Like, they can definitely watch the series because that's the glimpse into my world, right? Like, you might not have access to me, but you get to see what I work on and what's important to me. And I can safely say that there are at least other product marketing leaders at Salesforce in a similar vein. So I would say tap into that, watch for resources, do a quick Google search, and tap into your LinkedIn network too. You might be surprised who's made that switch that you did not know, and ask them for like an intro. And anytime someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to at least have a conversation with them, whether I know them or not, as long as it's reasonable. If you're doing that for phishing reasons or applying to my team, stay away. But if you're interested in genuinely understanding product marketing, more than happy to help.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Great. Well, I have one last question for you, which is above and beyond everything we've already talked about. what is one, or you can do a handful if you like, but tips for really trying to stand out in product marketing interviews? I think these days, tech companies, product roles of all varieties are very hot. There's a lot of competition. So you might know all the basics. You might be a decent storyteller, but you're going up a bunch of people that are the same. How do you differentiate?
I'm going to give you all a secret tip. So I highly recommend you take a trial of the product that you're interviewing for. So for instance, let's say you're applying to my team on the small business side. Go to our website, look at our product solution set, and identify the solution that maps to small businesses and take a free trial of that product. Go through the product because you're going to be breathing in and out of that product anyway. So take a look at that, go through the trial journey, document the things that you like, document the things that you don't like. And the next time you apply for an interview process, use that as your hook. It all comes down to the hook. If someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn and tells me, hey, I took a trial of your product and I noticed that it was missing this, you got my attention right then, right there. And it shows that you've done your research. It shows that you're interested in learning more about the product and you're interested in actioning the change or something that's not working for you. And just like you have so many other prospects out there. So I'm more than happy to at least have that conversation with you to understand, tell me more. What do you mean by that? And why is that? And every product marketer is extremely passionate about the product they market. So that's the first way for you to reach me quickly. Storytelling, I know, I trust you got that. Visual deck building, you got that. But this will get you stand out instantly.
Awesome. I think that is a very good point. Like, put in a little bit of work up front. It's going to help you get someone's attention in a meaningful, credible way, right? Like,
yes.
Hey, I did the work. I've got some insights. Like, it demonstrates a lot of interest right off the bat, instead of just like, hey, I'm a smart person. I want to be on your team.
Right. Or I've like increased the revenue 50x. I'm like, okay, that's great. But tell me what you can do to my business, right?
Yeah.
Like, tell me what you can do.
So, what can you do for me? Exactly.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time, Rekha, and sharing all of your tips on the product marketing interview process. With a ton of people are going to benefit from this and hopefully land product marketing jobs in the future.
Awesome. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, Kenton, and great questions. And I wish everyone a huge good luck for trying to break into product marketing world. I love this world and I am excited to see anyone who wants to break into this.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Take care.
This podcast is produced by ShareBird, the peer mentoring platform for product marketers. It is the place to discover on-demand resources to help you with your product marketing. To view past episodes, go to sharebird.com. And if you're preparing for product marketing interviews, check out Rocketblock's product marketing interview prep tools, the best place to practice PMM interview skills and get live coaching to ace your PMM interviews. Visit us at rocketblocks.me.